Now we need to deal with Lucian Freud. We can't deal with existentialism in the post-war period without dealing with Freud. And he's a British painter and draftsman. Now he will spend most of his career in Paddington, London, an inner city area whose seediness is reflected in Freud's often somber and moody interiors and cityscapes. In the 1940s, he's primarily interested in drawing, especially the face. Now, he'll experiment with a number of movements, including, for example, surrealism. He was also loosely associated with neo-romanticism. But he establishes his own artistic identity in these meticulously executed realist works, imbued with a pervasive mood of alienation. There's always this sort of isolation or alienation, very similar to what we saw from Edward Hopper. He also tends to have a close relationship with the sitter, with whoever he's painting. And this is very important to him. For example, here we see a depiction of his mother, who will sit for an extensive series in the early 1970s after she was widowed. And his daughters Bella and Esther modeled nude together and individually for him. Although the human form will dominate his output, Freud executed cityscapes viewed from his studio window and obsessively detailed nature studies. In the 80s and early 90s, his work is marked by increasingly ambitious compositions in terms of both scale and complexity. So, when we look at these pieces, what we're looking at is someone who is painting the world around him, painting people that he knows, and focusing on the human figure as representational of the human experience. Also looking at existential ideas. So, let's start with Girl with White Dog. Now, in this case, this picture shows the artist's first wife when she's pregnant. And this is not exactly the most glorifying or adoring depiction of this woman. She doesn't look graceful and classically beautiful. The style of the painting has roots in the smooth linear portraiture of French neoclassical painter Ingres. This, together with the particular psychological atmosphere of Freud's early work, lead critics to make the celebrated remark that Freud is the Ingres of existentialism, sort of asking why we exist and getting at those ideas of what our function is as humans. As we look at this piece, we can't look at it without thinking of these ideas of motherhood, the breast being exposed, of course, that basic human element, that element that is giving us the symbol of, the universal symbol of motherhood, obviously being prepared to breastfeed the child when it's born. The pregnant woman as uncomfortable in that robe, sort of not sure what's going on, especially if it's a first pregnancy. The dog sitting there, if you've ever owned a dog while someone is pregnant, you know that the dog, when someone is sick or pregnant, will just obsess over that person and sit with them, unsure of what's going on, because it senses something is up, something is different. And so we see the dog there. Now, the sense that Freud gives of human existence as essentially lonely and spiritually, if not physically painful, is something shared by his great contemporaries, including Francis Bacon. We're looking at a very lonely human existence. One where, again, like Hopper and so many others, we live in constant isolation. Here, this woman is not surrounded by friends. She is not surrounded by people taking care of her. We simply see her alone with the dog. We understand from a psychological level that Freud is in the room and is with her. And so we almost take Freud's position, wondering if we need to reach in and assist her in any way. Is there any help that we can offer? Should we be an emotional support for this woman? So At the same time, he creates something awkward, capturing that slight awkwardness that we all have in life, the same reason why we don't all look like Instagram models. So it's really a unique and interesting piece with a lot of themes that we've seen from, for example, Francis Bacon and others in this immediate post-war period.